what happened one day is that I had this complete separation from my mind and my body. I stopped getting sick. And this was huge. I knew from that moment that I'd found something that would change my entire life. It was -5 to -10 outside. Sometimes it would be snowing. Why am I here? Why am I thinking like this? Why is my mind, my body acting this way? It's like the yin and yang of life, it's like standing on that river. The suffering has been, it's undescribable, that's mental health being locked away.
She was separated from her husband after 16 years of marriage, and 95% of the people in her life left her as well. She didn't know who she was anymore. Leah talks about how she came across the Wim Hof Method and how it changed her life for the better. You get to hear from a certified instructor what the techniques imply and what the benefits are. Leah talks about one of her most transformative experiences in a cold river. She says her mind and body were no longer together. She felt a feeling of oneness. She also talks about how the cold exposure gets us in the fight or flight state, and how by controlling our state we can activate the parasympathetic system to play in our favor. She also opens up and tells us about her biggest goal and her wanting to teach the youth and how those new generations are our future. But guys, I'll let you to enjoy this podcast because we clearly have enjoyed recording it and producing it. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, Leah Scottie. You are listening to The Grateful Show with your hosts Pascu
and Bogdan. Join us on our mission to spread awareness around mental health and make people feel happier and overall more grateful.
Each week, we bring you an inspiring guest, stories, and a message that will help you become your best self and pursue your life mission. Cool. Do you wanna break the ice?
Yep. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of The Grateful Show. Hope you are doing fantastic, and if you are not, you're about to be, because today we have no other than Leah Scottie. How is it going, Leah?
Oh, wonderful over here in Australia, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
It's our pleasure, honestly. And just to break the ice, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, what am I grateful for? You know what? I am grateful for all of my sufferings, my hardship. It's really led me on a whole new path in life the last 5 years. The loss, blame, resentment. And it's I know it's incredibly paradoxical, right, to have that. It's almost a spiritual mindset, I think. But wow, has my life just gone into an amazing direction, and I've been able to help many people. So it's very, very fulfilling.
Yeah, I love your mindset, the stoic mindset. You have to suffer in order to gain later. That's the spirit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But before we get any further, Leah, for our audience that doesn't really know much about you, can you give us like a brief introduction into who you are and basically how you came to be where you are now?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So 6 years ago, I separated from my husband, and I'd been with him for 16 years. And overnight, I literally lost 90% of people out of my life. I didn't know who I was. It was an incredibly difficult, horrific time for me. The loss of that identity just led me spiraling psychologically down the deepest hole I'd ever been in. And I had many awakening moments back then, but it led me on a seeking journey to, want peace within and to improve my mind and body. And little did I know that, what was there the entire time was the Wim Hof Method had come along, and I tried breathing and this cold exposure, which made me feel incredible. And so I did that every single day. And, that led me to the mountains and to realize that I'm actually, I'm a spirit. And so the healing and the well-being that the journey that I've been on the last 5 years through the method has allowed me to pass on these skills to other people.
Beautiful. Can I ask you, how was everything different before actually coming across the Wim Hof method and before the unfortunate event and the big change? How were things before then?
Well, I was not sleeping properly whatsoever. My mind was racing all the time. I was getting to the point where I wasn't leaving the house. It was despair. But I think in that foundation of the despair, that's when the questions started to arise. And, I really started to dig deep into that foundation of why am I here? Why am I thinking like this? Why is my mind, my body acting this way?
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed me to really step away from the programming. I realized that I was very attached to my identity, and now that was gone. But where did that identity come from? Why did I think that I failed because my marriage was over? And so it broke me in two, and I had this insight that I come into the world on my own and I'm leaving on my own. So I may as well live the exact life I wanted to live. And that very much, I gave away the people pleasing. And I just focused on me. I've got 2 boys, and that was very important as well. Everybody wants to be the best parent they can for their kids, and that drove me to do anything, to better myself.
Really nice, really impressive story, and it's more impressive that you actually found the strength to rise and to become the person who you are today. But I'm curious because you mentioned that obviously what you are doing at the moment, career-wise, it all revolves around Wim Hof. And I'm really curious, how did you find about Wim Hof and about his method? Because we all know that approximately 3 or 4 years ago only, he has become this celebrity after, I believe, he went on the Joe Rogan podcast. At least for me, that was the time I was introduced to him, and I really felt in love with his mindset. But for you,
yes. So again, on my seeking journey, there was an acquaintance that come along, and I was very open to sharing where I was at. I knew fear played a big part in my suffering. And I told him about my anxiety and my stress and depression. And he said, I just listened to a podcast with Joe Rogan and the Iceman. Have you heard of him? And, of course, I said, no. Is that the serial killer from America? How is this guy going to help me? Because he was, although he was even, much bigger in Europe at that time, not over here. Mm-hmm. He was very unheard of 5 years ago. And after watching the podcast, I could just resonate with Wim so much. He said I'd actually had visions a couple of months before where I was floating in a river. This was when I was really at my worst at nighttime. And, I told my girlfriend, and she thought I'd completely lost it. And I did too. But to hear Wim say that, that was probably what got me to try his method, because I thought, here is a man that's has gone through a very similar stage in life that I had. And what have I got to lose? So I gave the breathing a go, and it was euphoric. I saw lights and colors, I left my body, and coming out of that, I thought, I was just blown away. It was very much out of my comfort zone, and I wasn't even going to have the cold shower, but because of that profound experience with the breath work, I went ahead with it and come out feeling strong and present. And I knew from that moment that I'd found something that would change my entire life.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think we can both relate, Bogdan. I was about to say 3 years ago, but it's literally 4 years ago when you listened to the podcast. And I remember we were living together at the time, and he comes at me. We are still at the time. I think we just started a podcast, if I'm not wrong, or we were planning to. Exactly. And he comes at me. He's like, "You need to try this." And he was like all hyped and like seemed very happy, energy. No, you need to try this. And I was cooking. I was like, "What's wrong with you? Like, try what?" He was like, "No, put your headphones, go into my room, lay down, and just do as the guy tells you." I was like, "Are you crazy? Like, is this like for real?" I go there, lay on my back, and literally I do as Wim says, and then I wake up. I wake up from the bed. And I'm like, "How long has it been?" And he's like 2 minutes and a half. I was like, 2 minutes and a half. I literally didn't breathe for 2 minutes. How is this possible? And then from there, I think it was just a matter of like doing it on and off for a couple of months. And then beginning of 2019, we both started doing cold showers, and it took off from there. But for us, obviously we can relate, and possibly some people from the audience can relate, because we've been speaking about these things for quite a while. But coming from you as an instructor and someone who definitely knows a lot more than us, I would like to ask you, how would you actually describe these methods, because there's a couple of them, to someone that has never heard of them? Like, how would you tell your old self about these methods right now, if you wish?
Oh, wow. What a question. Look, I think I'll start off simply, and I'll just say that the method itself is comprised of 3 pillars. So you have the breath work. For anybody that doesn't know, the breath work, the gradual cold exposure, and the mindset and focus. And that's basic, right? We can look at ice baths or cold exposure being in pools, chest freezers. Having a cold shower is a great place to start for people. But for me, I swim in the rivers. I was incredibly drawn to nature, and that's how I love to pass the method on at my retreats. I take people and we spend a lot of time down hiking in nature, and a few minutes in a frozen river, which can, in Australia, believe it or not, it snows here. A lot of people don't realise, but
I didn't know that.
It's surprising.
And from my experience, it's just the benefits are tenfold going into nature. There's an incredible connection that I gained within myself again, delving into that wild side. And it's a knowing of it's where I belong.
It's interesting to hear that, because I think that's probably one of the things that we are currently missing from our day-to-day lives. I was speaking to someone close to me, like literally the other week, and I was like, "Don't you feel like some emptiness within you?" Like the last couple of weeks, I literally feel some emptiness, and I don't know why. And I probably know what it is, but I don't know why it's so significant right now. But nature is definitely playing a huge role. And currently, as we might all know, we are pushed towards cities and big metropolis where there's literally not even oxygen at times to breathe, let alone trees or water.
That's right. And it's the alienation, exactly like you said, that's leading us down this track. It's complete disconnection. And even when we look at, what is so important in a time like this is a healthy, robust immune response. And we gain that in nature. We understand how our body works. Our mind is in awe just walking through the mountains. That's releasing chemicals, rebalancing our hormonal system. And it's actually incredibly basic. It's so simple. But technology leads the way. 21st century society says we must be on the go all the time. We must be doing. But and interesting, again, paradoxically, that's why we're going into autoimmune, neurological, and cancer.
Very
It's that
interesting.
disconnection.
Find it very interesting because literally this morning I posted a story upon cancer. There's this big institute in London, literally central London, and they've got this code where they're like studying the nature's biggest enigma. And I literally wrote there, like, it's not nature's enigma, it's like the result of people's greed and greed for power and greed for profits, because it's definitely not nature made.
Yeah.
But I would like to dive deeper and ask you, what was one of the experiences that really helped you heal as you were going on this path of Wim Hof Method?
Look, I would have to say in the early days, in that first year when I was practicing the method daily, I started off for a couple of months down on the coast, and then I was just drawn, again, another big pull to go up to the mountains. And I went from just in a plastic box on my balcony, and it would freeze over in the morning, to into the Jindabyne Lake. And that became too warm, so I went to the river. And that first few weeks of going in there daily, I mean, it was -5 to -10 outside. Sometimes it would be snowing. I would park at this picnic area and walk along the bank, and it would be white with frost. And what started to happen was that I started to realize my thoughts, they really didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to go in. Like, what are you doing? And I was always on my own, couldn't get anybody to do it. Everyone called me fucking crazy. And so I would tell myself to step away from my thoughts, bring your awareness to the breath. And then the next day I would go down, and I would, emotionally, my heart would be pumping, and my hands would be clammy. And I was like, oh, I don't like that either. Create distance away from that also. And what I started to realize is once I got then into the water, the pain in my fingers and in my toes was excruciating. It's like someone's got a hammer and hit every one of my nails. So I would create distance away from that also. And what happened one day is that I had this complete separation from my mind and my body. And it was this feeling of, and it's very hard to describe, but I had become the river, I had become the trees, I'd become you. And I was just, it was like, it was oneness, it was just, it was one with the planet. And that moment, or those few moments, experiencing that and driving home and not fearing death, I understood. I got this deeper connection, and that really transformed the entire way I pass on the method. And people can really, I think I find they really resonate with that, and it helps them a lot, because we can overcome anything in life, when we can change our awareness, or when we understand that there is something bigger at play going on.
Very inspiring. I really love it. I really love the way you portrayed it, that you were suffering so bad, you felt like you were hit with a hammer in each finger. And then all of a sudden, after you embraced the call, like Wim loves to say, you actually became this person who you are now. But I'm really curious. There are a lot of people at the moment that maybe is their first time on this podcast. And when they are hearing what we are talking about, they're like you said, what the fuck are these guys talking about? How is this thing going to help me? First of all, why am I going to endure such pain? And how is this thing going to help me? And how would you answer to that question? I'm really curious.
Yeah, well, I would first off say that if we're talking about the cold, it gives whatever your mind, body, and spirit needs. So for each person, it's going to be something completely different, and it's going to be different depending on which stage you are in life also. So for me, in the early days, my mental health, it helped me incredibly. It made me understand how my nervous system works. So as I mentioned, I had extreme anxiety, but I just had no control of my internal state. And going into the cold, it teaches you that you can step into that sympathetic nervous system, that fight-flight response, but then you use your breath to calm down into parasympathetic. So it's a teacher, all right? It's a teacher of how our body works. In other areas of my life, I had to study for, I think it took me 8 months to become an instructor. And so I was studying physiology, to first grade university level science papers. And so I use the cold as a tool for focus and attention and plasticity on my brain. It increases our energy. Another big one, because I'm a single mum, is I stopped getting sick. And this was huge. And it has been over the years. I went from someone who would get the flu and I'd be in bed for 5 days. That was normal. Whereas now I'll get a sniffly nose or a sore throat. It seems to never be 2 symptoms. It's just one, and I blow my nose, I jump into the breathing, do a bit more, let go of the cold, and I just go off for the day. And I was just going to say, I train athletes for recovery, performance, sore joints. And then we look at autoimmune conditions, which, the method draws many people with, these symptoms because we reduce the force of inflammation and release white blood cells. We influence our immune response.
Yeah. And I believe most probably people are getting, because we are talking about getting sick and about recovering, most people are getting sick so fast because when it's a little bit cold, like in the room or outside, they are immediately putting on a jacket. And then let's say that in 5 minutes, the clouds go away, the sun is shining on you and it's warm, and then you don't take the jacket off, of course. And then basically, I feel like your body is just getting used to you being more in the heat. And when it's actually cold outside, obviously that your immune system, it's weak. But if you train for long enough to actually stay in the cold and embrace the cold, then basically your immune system, it's very high and it's very protecting you. And that's why basically you don't get sick so fast, right?
Yeah. So, you're right about the jumpers. It's the cardiovascular system is just in stagnancy. It's in utter comfort, and we give it no reason to build resilience. And so the cold gradually builds this resilience that we need. We're covered in temperature and pain receptors all over our skin. And what happens is the cold hits that, and it starts off this cascade of events via the nervous system. Adrenaline plays a huge role, and that influences the immune response. And it's interesting. We're always told, put a jumper on before you go outside, as children, right? And so this ingrained response has led to us fearing the cold now. And I always tell people when they have those thoughts, it's just a programming, it's a pattern. It's step away, come within the body, change your awareness, create that distance. We can do so much more than what we think we can and what we're told we can.
For sure. And I read this the other week. There was a post around nutrition, and a doctor, she was mentioning how the flu is actually eaten and is not taken from someone. In majority of cases, it's apparently eaten. And what she meant by that specifically is that we don't even have probiotics, and all the food that we eat is basically lacking all the nutrients that we need in order to develop a healthy, sustained, and strong body. You were mentioning about the fact that you experienced oneness, right? You were one with the river, and for a short moment, it seemed like everything made sense. And from that moment onwards, you kind of you could say that you grasped life differently from like a different perspective, because you kind of witnessed that. And then from there, everything was kind of the same, but at the same time, not really. How would you describe your attitude towards things afterwards? Because that must have been like a moment of awakening.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. It took time. It took me a couple of years to process. I'll be honest. I felt like I lived in two worlds. I felt very distant from people initially. I felt like I didn't understand or, what was going on. It was more of that awakening that I'd had that previous year, but it was just different this time because I received that epiphany of oneness. And I had to, I felt like I was just alone, and it has been a lonely journey, but as time has gone on, and I've become an instructor, and I have like-minded people around me. They come to my retreats, and I almost draw those people to me these days, from staying on this path and having thoughts. And I would say that to anyone that's going through this right now, is who does feel really lonely and thinks that they almost want to go back, right? You want to go back at times to the old you, to be oblivious to life and to be stuck in that autonomous route. But you can't ever go back. You have to embrace it. You got to keep moving forward and keep focusing on your practices. And and there's so much beauty in that along the way. I live my best life now, and my relationships are deep and meaningful because of it. And it's quality. It's quality over quantity.
100%. Definitely something that is not portrayed in the current socio-political ecosystem. And you were mentioning about what do you want to say? Oh, yeah, I wanted to say about the fact that there is this saying that says that once a soul is awakened, it shall stay awake eternally. And I think that applies to your story as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. There is no going back, but it's okay to feel moments of that. It's all part of the journey. But yeah, I think we keep leveling up.
For sure.
We really do.
Definitely. We spoke a lot about the past and about the present, but I'm really curious. How do you see your future self? I mean, like career-wise, and I feel like, of course, you have like a deeper meaning, and I know that you want to actually give more and more to people, but how you portray yourself in, like, let's say 5 years, 10 years, whatever you want.
It has been my goal is to have my own chalet on a river. I've been working towards that. I'd like to bring in, I'm very passionate about training the youth and passing my tools on, because that's where I see, that's where we really make a difference in the world. And they grasp it, like they see, they'll try anything, a lot of them, depending on their age, and I can get their attention very quickly. It's the tools they're a catalyst, but they work straight away, as the breath work you tried in just a few minutes, and you felt those physiological and psychological changes. And so that's my dream. That's my dream. That's what I'm working towards, bringing in, groups to a chalet and just having my own place and having the garden, like you mentioned, it's again, something else that we're alienated from is real food, organic. We need to be eating dirt. I tell people, eat dirt, eat the bacteria, eat the mold. It's what our gut needs. But that's, and COVID has come along, And yes, there's been some difficult times, but I have patience. I know, and I saw in the river many years ago that I would change a lot of people's lives. And, so that's what I just keep working towards.
One day at a time. Beautiful. Leah, I wanted to ask you, what would be 3 actionable tips that our audience could implement straight away to improve their life overall?
Yeah. So I would suggest downloading the Wim Hof Method app. That is, I think the first 5 guided breathing sessions are free. Very good place to start if they're interested in the method. The cold shower. Everyone's got access to a cold shower, and people can just start with 15 seconds. Get your hands in, your arms in, get your feet in next, and then turn your back on it. And you want it right there on your brainstem, the mind-body connection. If they can afford some ice, grab a few friends, buy some bags of ice and put it in a bathtub, or better yet, go into a frozen river. Some other tools that I live by is good, adequate sleep. I think going to bed at the same time every night, keeping your cave at night dark, okay, not being on screens, using that time to calm down. That should be parasympathetic. So they are my main tips. I think water, good structured water is important also. And it's really getting those basic pillars of health, clean air, go into nature, even if it's just once a week, set that intention, write down what you're grateful for. If you're in a difficult situation, write down what you fear, write down what you're scared of, because just looking at it on a page, you can start to tick off, go into your fears, confront them. Because that's how we integrate them, and that's how it's all part of our evolution to overcome those fears.
Yeah. What I find funny, first of all, thank you so much for sharing those tips with us. What I find funny, like a lot of people are just trying to find like some magical solution, or like a pill, or like, what do I need to do in order to be this, or have money, or be healthy? But like you said, it's like the basics they need to nail first. Like you said, like drink enough water, take a cold shower, focus on your breathing, like write down what you think about, what you feel. And after, like, you focus on these like basics, then you should like focus on the details, like the small details that of course will make the difference. But first of all, you gotta nail the basics, right?
Absolutely. I mean, these foundations, and again, this is what I believe should be in school. We should 100%. Be learning our mind and body. Like, wow. I mean, it is everything. It's our driver in all of our relationships, how we learn at school. We can be optimizing our mind, right, with all types of tools and natural supplements and exercise and it's like, it's almost the first sphere, right? And then we can aim for our careers, because we've got this driving force to get there. And and once we start to conquer the mind, like anything is possible, because we can meet situations and we can change our perception very quickly, or we can have look at language. I mean, how important is language? Just having a few sentences to be able to change where we are in a difficult situation is, it stops leading us down into the rabbit hole of, Yeah,
I think the issue nowadays lies in the fact that a lot of people are skipping the first steps, and they just want to get into like the results-oriented habits, or like practices, techniques. Like there's a lot of not necessarily toxicity, but especially with COVID now, I feel like a lot of people got into spirituality for the wrong reasons. and they might have tried some ayahuasca retreat or done some psychedelics or whatever the likes, and now they think that they've discovered everything, and they don't have the foundation. And it's even, in my opinion, it's even more damaging to yourself and towards people that you care about, because you have this whole fake identity that you've created for yourself, because you don't know yourself. You haven't gone through the first steps of actually conquering your own mind and your own ego to be able to grasp those next chapters.
Yeah. And I can say a couple of things there. And firstly, a pill is not going to tell us or teach us how our nervous system works. It just won't. It's just going to numb our soul, numb our spirit. And there's zero evolution in that, because we're not delving deep into why we're thinking and feeling where we are. And the other thing, I see a lot on, the spiritual path, is that people forget that the suffering, the anxiety, the loss, that resentment, it's actually, it's like the yin and yang of life, it's like standing on that river. It's feeling all those emotions, those thoughts, and, not wanting to go in, but understanding that it is a part of life. We're all going to feel that. And let's not run from it, or let's not, again, numb it with drugs and alcohol. It's embracing, it's questioning, why am I here? What is this trying to teach me? And then making those, we have 200 choices in a day. Just focusing on, if you can't focus on the weeks or the months, or the hours, focus on those minutes and those seconds where you're at, and just making those small changes every day. And as time goes on, as the weeks and months go on, it all adds up, it combines.
Exactly.
Let me just bring a quote, because you were mentioning about the decisions, and I think this is going to be super beneficial for our audience. I was listening to Digital Minimalism literally yesterday, I think, and basically there's this quote saying, approaching decisions with intention can be more important than the impact of those actual decisions themselves. Therefore, when you are intentional in what you do, it plays a massive role, whilst a lot of people are like dwelling on whether to have a latte macchiato or an espresso for breakfast, or whether to have this dress or the other, and they just get lost into all the noise.
Yeah, that's I love that. And that's a big one for the cold, right? When we intentionally choose to go into it. I mean, the first one is the hardest, because people's minds are just going, and they just don't, it's unfamiliar. So anything unfamiliar is scary. We want to run from it. But as we keep doing that, we have a complete different psychological and physical response within the cold water. You look at someone that is untrained, and if they fall into the water, they will panic. Mm-hmm. And they probably get hypothermia and, whatever else. If they can't get out, then we drown, we pass on. But somebody that is trained and that is doing it every day, we learn about ourselves. We know how to calm ourselves in the chaos. And, it becomes, I don't think we ever really fully conquer it. I'm happy to admit, wow, I still don't want to get into it. I still find it so difficult sometimes, but that is the beauty of it. That is the beauty, because it's always going to it shows me what I need. At times it'll still take my breath away, and I'll know that I've gone through a bit of stress in my life, but it's releasing from the body.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, like a few days ago, my girlfriend was asking me when I was taking a cold shower, like, is it better now? I mean, after all these years, like, is it like hotter? Isn't it that cold? And I'm like, no, it still hurts. It's still exactly the same like in the first day. You just like get used to the thought that you will suffer, and you relax quicker. And then you go through it, and that's kind of it. Nothing else changes. And like, it's the same with the analogy of life. We are always trying to actually like push down what we feel and not actually face it, and then something else goes on top of it and on top of it, and it becomes harder and harder to actually seek and find out what's the one thing that actually bothering you, that trauma, that suffering, and you're actually just putting stuff on top, the pleasures and like you said, alcohol and addictions, and you're not dealing with the problem. And that's what like cold showers and, like you said, the small steps actually help, because like you are uncovering a little bit more and a little bit more, and then like you just see yourself after a while, you just see that you are actually know yourself, who you truly are, and like you are ready to actually face who you truly are and to embrace who you truly are.
Yeah, there was this perspective upon courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but it's actually the knowing of fear and accepting the fear and going with it. But I wanted to ask you, Leah, what do you want to be remembered for or as long after you're gone?
Wow, what a question. I think people, they remember how you made them feel. And I've been, the thank yous that I get, the messages, the hugs at the retreats, and it's in the eyes, in that they're so grateful. And I'm happy. That's what I want. That's what I want to be remembered for. It's just changing, even though it's far beyond just one person. And I'm so grateful for that now. I've passed this method on to thousands of people. But this is my journey, and this is what I want to keep doing. I want to reach more people. And that's what I want to be remembered for. And it's very simple, but that's actually what fulfills me is it's the shine in their eyes, the glitter, the knowing that, they become connected to themselves once again, and they get it. Yeah.
Very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah. I really love I really love actually when people, when we ask our guests these questions and they are giving us a selfless answer. And it's not like, I want to have this car and I want to have this company. It's like, I want to actually see that people can benefit from what I do. And like, I make them feel happier and more fulfilled with themselves and all the good stuff that comes with it. So thank you so much for sharing that.
A life of service.
Beautiful. Yeah. I wanted to ask you this question. I mean, of course, it's very subjective, but what would you say that is the meaning of life?
I think the meaning of life is to experience it, and to experience it in all its different forms, to embrace every day and try and get the most out of every day and where we're at, and to enjoy it, to receive, to feel contentment. But for me, I love the adventure side of it, I don't hold myself back whatsoever. If someone says, give this a go, I'll try anything once, because it helps me evolve. If we're not trying things, if we're not getting outside of our comfort zone, then we very much stay in our box, I think. And we're, time flies. We're here for, just so much of a moment in this lifetime, right? So, we've got to give it everything we've got.
Definitely. The meaning of life is life itself, a philosopher once said. But yeah, it's very refreshing to hear your perspective on it. And yeah, especially now, because I don't know for you, I would like to know your opinion and thoughts, but for me, and I think Bogdan as well, it really seems like all the past memories have been basically happened. They happened in 2019, 2018, 17. There is nothing in between 2019 and now that really just stays in the memory, if you know what I mean. I don't know about you, but for me, the last 2 years kind of swept away. We've done quite a few things, but still, I feel like they went way too fast with all this chaos.
Yeah. But I think, that it's been such an incredible teacher for people. I know over here in Australia, the suffering has been, it's undescribable, that's mental health being locked away. We need community, we need one another. We need that social connection. It's probably the greatest healing that we can have when we find our tribe, and we spend time with those like-minded people. So people have been, stepping away and treating themselves like they matter a lot more as well, which is great to see. People are changing their lives, they're changing their jobs, they're changing their relationships. They're changing what they thought was health, the meaning of healthy, because health is about the psyche, it's about getting to know that internal state like we've talked about, our mind, body and spirit. And so I hope going forward that people will continue that, and grasp on to these greater lessons in life.
Yeah, and they definitely will if they would just apply at least 10% of what you taught us in this podcast. And we can go on and on forever with this podcast, and we got a lot of value, but is the time when we ask you the last question. So if you need some time to actually think about an answer, just help yourself. So the question goes like this. Imagine that you are on your deathbed, and right next to you is the best version of yourself looking at you. You see and comprehend what you could have become. So how would you feel about yourself and about your whole life that you have lived in that moment?
Gentlemen, I've got zero regrets. I've strived, I've worked so hard. I've had to let, the people in my life go at times that weren't serving me these last 5 years. I tell people, it's interesting, I say the exact same thing to people who aren't in a good place. I say, on your deathbed, is this the life you want to be living? And for me, I'm living my best life. I love it. I wouldn't be doing anything else. I wouldn't be around different other people. I have got so much enjoyment, so much passion and freedom. It's, every day is a new creation. And, it's love. So, if I was met with leaving tomorrow, then I'm going out with a smile on my face. I really am.
And that's how you live a life true to yourself. Very powerful. Thank you for sharing. As Bogdan said, we are approaching the end of the interview, and I don't know about you, Bogdan, but I feel very fresh now after having the conversation, and hopefully the audience feels the same, and take some time after this podcast to do a couple of rounds of Wim Hof.
Maybe take a cold shower, because this is how we feel now.
Before letting you go, I just want to leave you the red carpet, and just feel free to share any resources that you want, where people can find you, where they can connect with you moving forward from now.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a website, which is leahscott.net, and you can find me on my socials also. Instagram is Leah Scottie, and Facebook is Wim Hof Method Techniques. Yeah, but I would just tell everybody, start treating yourself like you matter. Just give yourself 20 minutes a day, work on yourself, get to know yourself, because when we do that, the small world around us starts to heal too. Everyone will see your progress. They'll want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it. And this is how we start to heal the planet.
For sure. Change in the world starts with you. It starts inside yourself. Leah, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing everything. All the links will be in the description, guys. Make sure to check out Leah's website. Make sure to follow her on Instagram. I'm sure you'll continue to get more value moving forward after this podcast. And with that said, this was Pascu.
This was Bogdan, and you guys stay grateful. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for sticking all the way till the end. This shows that you are serious about taking your life to the next level and doing that through a perspective of gratitude. If you enjoyed this interview, it would help us massively if you could give us a 5-star rating review on iTunes, or else share this on your stories and tag us. This way, with your help, our message will be seen by more people, and together we will make this world a better place.